I believe that we were here when last.
My brother was using his.
Whoops.
I thought that was. It's not that cold inside.
When last we convened.
What are the words on the?
I think we're sliding.
We got to AS.
We were on LRAS.
If the aggregate supply is vertical, functions in AG do not cause fluctuations in output or employment. If AS slopes up, then the shifts in the aggregate demand do affect output.
This one?
What you got?
No, keep going.
Keep going backwards.
Why
and
the
forward.
slope of SRAS matters is what we're on.
You're never gonna go forward.
I have all these notes right now.
No, we have covered.
Changes their technology. Got it. Got him.
Got
Him.
I
Got
don't
it.
remember.
Wait.
Yeah,
I also have this one. This is the
Oh
slide
yeah,
we
yeah,
stopped
we're way
on.
past that. We are on.
Please.
Question me, boy.
I was questioning my questions, man. I had evidence and I was still questioning. That do-rag was in the way I can't see the slide we were on.
This is the slide
Yeah,
we're on.
that's it. We're good.
Okay then, so I was only off by one.
Well, you were way off.
So many transitions, like 10 transitions.
Huh? His lips like quivering like.
Go on.
You can't write it 3 times.
Okay. So far we don't have a short run aggregate supply here, correct? We only have long run.
Yeah.
Agreed. But when we add short run,
I go on.
and here's a big if. If aggregate supply slopes upward, then shifts in aggregate demand do affect output and unemployment. As long as aggregate supply is vertical, aggregate demand can change all it wants, no impact on output and unemployment. The minute aggregate supply slopes, and it's always going to slope upward, then changes in aggregate demand do affect output and unemployment. Are you with me? As long as we're only looking at the vertical curve, shifting aggregate demand is always going to leave GDP in one place, right? It's going to stay exactly where that is. As soon as we put in a sloped aggregate supply curve, then shifts in aggregate demand move us. They change the price level, and they change GDP. Do you see? It's important that you be solid here because I'm about to throw 3 different theories of aggregate supply at you. Are we good here? Vertical, no changing, sloped, changing. Dayton, do you understand? Yes, you do. And claiming that you don't will not make me say your name once. By the way, does this continue over days?
Yes.
I mean, if we really want to.
The rest of the slide.
Enjoyable.
What?
Oh, I know it.
You can almost hear the birds chirping.
No, we can still hear your voice though.
At least I'm funny.
About that.
So the question is why, if long run aggregate supply is vertical, why does short run aggregate supply have an upward slope? Why is aggregate supply positively sloped in the short run? That's the question. There are 3 theories about why that might be. In each of the theories, some conditions exist that are common among them. Okay? There is some kind of market imperfection. And we know from our micro study that no market is ever perfect. Okay? So we assume that no matter the short run theory that we're looking at, there is market imperfection. What that means is that output isn't going to maintain its natural rate because the actual price level is going to deviate from the price level that we expect. For instance, you might expect to be able to purchase ice melt at a deeply discounted price in mid-April to stock up for the following fall. However, when there's a massive blizzard that hits the state,
Right.
prices for ice melt are not discounted.
It's not chill.
We were at Lowe's yesterday. I asked them how many sets of patio furniture they've sold. Apparently, there's not been a lot of interest for
It's their lowest number.
patio furniture, but a lot of people have been calling and asking if they still had socials in stock.
Their lowest number ever. They've ever sold.
All right.
Low.
If you do not ordinarily read the chapter, first, shame. Second, you should read this subsection of the chapter. It will help you significantly in your understanding. Okay, first theory of why short-run aggregate supply is positively sloped. The sticky wage theory. The sticky wage theory is not related to the money with which you're paid, saying that the bills are actually sticky in some way, as though your boss had just finished eating some Cinnabon before counting out your pay. That's not what the sticky wage theory is about. It says that nominal wages are sticky in the short run, meaning they do not immediately fluctuate in response to changes in price level. They are sluggish. They are slow. They are you on a Sunday afternoon when you wake up from your nap and you're like, huh? Is it Monday? You ever do that? You fall asleep and when you wake up you're like, what day is it?
No, where you look at the clock and you're like, is this AM or PM?
Uh-huh. Yep. Okay. So sticky wages, they do not adjust rapidly. This can be because of social contracts, it can be because of social norms. A lot of times it's because even though inflation goes up, employers don't automatically adjust their pricing, and in order to pay a higher wage, they need to be collecting higher prices, etc. So some things lag. See, what happens is when you take a job, you agree to the wage that you're going to be paid. And most of you will get a biannual or an annual review. You get a raise once a year. Maybe, if you're going to get a raise. Okay? Well, if price levels go up in January and your review is in December, your wages are going to be kind of sticky. Right? Even in the instance of hyperinflation, most employers are slow to adjust wages. Okay. Continuing with sticky wages. If the price level is greater than the price level at equilibrium, your revenue is up, but your labor costs haven't gone up. As an employer, how does this make you feel? Woo! Right? I'm making more money, but I'm not paying any more money out than I expected to. Hot diggity. In fact, maybe I should make more. And I should hire more, but at the existing wage. So higher prices are going to raise GDP. And so, under the sticky wage theory, your short-run aggregate supply is going to slope upward. Yes?
Wait, you went a little faster. The very last slide. If prices are higher.
what that's saying is if the prices are higher than what we expected them to be, these things hold true. So the imperfection that's present in this example is that prices are sticky in the short run. It's not just wages that are sticky, short run prices are. Specifically, let's take one into account that we all see all the time. Menu costs. Now, economics is an imperfect science. And we know that increasingly, especially in the fast food and in the quick service market, menus are no longer printed, right? They're increasingly digital. And so it's going to be easier for them to adjust prices, at least in those realms. Nebraska Furniture Mart's price tags. Who's been to Nebraska Furniture Mart in the past year? Their price tags are digital now. So they don't necessarily have the same menu costs that they used to. When I worked at Nebraska Furniture Mart when I was in college, I used to go out. Sales always ran Thursday to Sunday. So on Wednesday, you'd be out with a marker and a stack of tags. You'd be writing the existing price, crossing it out, and writing the new sale price, and then sleeving it. I climbed on every couch and love seat and chair in that store for years, tagging, and then you'd have to go out first thing on Monday morning before the store opened, pull all of those sale tags. Then we got modern, and we could print the sale tags. Then you still had to go out, put them in on Wednesday night, pull them out on Monday morning. That's a lot of labor cost and a lot of material cost. Now, digital pricing. Boom, the ads come out. Somebody else is selling the refrigerator at a lower price. Pull that up. Send the new price out to the tag. Right like that. So as we evolve, as increasingly we shop online, those menu costs are going away. So these theories may change in your lifetime. Someday your kids may be sitting in this classroom. I'll still be here. But I may be teaching the theory a little differently at that point. Okay? Firms set their prices in advance based on the expected price. That's not necessarily PE as price equilibrium, it's price expected. So we had sticky wage theory, we're on sticky price theory. Let's suppose the Fed increases the money supply unexpectedly. They pop that money supply up. Now, they just told us they're going to increase interest rates twice more in this year. So those will be expected changes. Let's suppose that all of a sudden they release a lot more money into the economy that they hadn't told us was going to be coming. Okay? Prices will go up rather rapidly and quite unexpectedly. In the short run, those firms who don't have menu costs can pop their prices up. Bam. Right? NFM, McDonald's, Burger King, everybody with the digital menus, digital pricing, boop, right up. Other folks, it may take a couple of days, it may take a couple of weeks. Some may take a couple of months. They're going to wait to raise prices to see if prices come back down. A few years ago, gas prices had spiked, and we started seeing surcharges added to things. So if you called Roto-Rooter to come and snake your drain, They're still going to charge you $39.99 to come and snake your drain, but they're going to add a surcharge for that. They're going to add a $10 fuel cost surcharge to it. Okay? Rather than changing their menu price, they added a surcharge. Sometimes we've had issues where tomatoes were scarce. And so if you wanted extra tomatoes at Taco Bell, they're going to charge you a little more money, whereas most of the time they just throw a few more on because you asked. Then the tomato shortage lasted so long they actually began to adjust their prices. Anything that included tomatoes, they began to adjust the prices. Pizza prices went up $1 a pie. It was rough. Dayton's having a seizure over there. I'm guessing he thinks $39.99 to have your drain snaked is probably not an accurate made-up cost. Probably $99 to have your drain snaked. $150. Somewhere near there. Yeah, I don't know. I try not to clog my drains. All right. So, the interesting thing is, though, for the companies that hold off on changing their prices, they're the bargain option. So by having kept their prices low, demand for their goods increases, and so they then increase their output and have to hire more because they're getting more business because they've got the low prices. You follow that? Should make common sense. So, in the end, we get a higher price associated with a higher GDP, and what that means then is that, once again, short-run aggregate supply slopes upward, and thus ends theory 2. We had sticky price, we had sticky wage. Now, the third one is not sticky. The third one comes from things you think you see or think you understand but don't. The misperceptions theory. Misperceptions. This is not a crown or a title you would compete for. You can't be, hello, I'm misperception. No, it's misperceptions is in misunderstandings.
We say it one more time.
The imperfection that exists is that sometimes firms don't actually understand what's going on. They're confusing changes in price with changes in the relative price of what they sell. Can anyone explain that distinction?
Please do explain.
Read it up in the voice.
Don't tell Tim.
Mark?
Is it that the nominal is increasing, but the real isn't?
Right. The nominal price has changed, the real price isn't. So, just because everybody else's prices are rising, if your costs haven't gone up as a producer, do you need to raise your prices? So you face a choice. I can raise my prices and just stay at a perfectly competitive level with everybody else. But if I keep my prices low because my costs haven't increased, that means I'm going to have greater output and thus expand my business. Thus improving GDP and employment. This one is probably the least likely of the three possible explanations for why short-run aggregate supply is sloped upward. It's pretty implausible that many firms are this confused, that many firms have this same common misperception. Under the misperception theory, if price rises above the expected price level, A firm sees its price rise before they have a chance to go, whoa, all of our prices are going up. Jonathan, making a face.
Yeah, I don't really get that.
You don't get it. All right. A box of Kleenex. What are the prices associated with this box of Kleenex? How much did it cost to make the box? What prices are associated with the cost of making the box? How much did it cost to make cardboard? What prices are associated with making cardboard? The lumberjacking of the trees, the shipping of the lumber, assuming that there's not a forest located immediately adjacent to the Kleenex factory, right? We have to ship the lumber. Then we have to mill and pulp the lumber.
How do you know all
You watch his video.
Is there anybody who is chopping down the trees
this?
and sailing the ships and running the paper mill?
All of
So labor at all levels, right? Okay. How did this cardboard box come to be this shape and have flaps like this?
magic.
So an engineer somewhere designed this. So there's design costs that the opening will be this size. Oh wait, here's plastic. So now we have chemical engineers involved in designing the plastic, and we have all of the polymers and all of the things that are involved in producing the plastic, and there's something holding this flap down and holding the plastic to this, and now we have adhesives, more chemical engineers, okay? Then we haven't talked about the tissue itself, and what about the design on the box? Somebody actually got paid to create that design, and then somebody had to design the machines in the factory that produce the box, that run it through, that print the design on the box. Somebody else designed the machine that produces the tissues and folds them just so.
Are you gonna use that? Or are you gonna leave it there for someone else to use that?
I'm going to throw it Okay. Are you following all of this? There's a lot of costs associated with Procter & Gamble putting this box of tissues on the shelf at your grocery store. Beyond that, is it Kleenex who is setting the price? It is not. Kleenex said to Walmart and Family Fare and Baker's and Albertsons and Safeway and Hy-Vee and here's what we'll sell this to you for. And they all said, okay, or go lower, or we're not buying it, right? Then it goes and it sits in their warehouse. And when each individual store needs some, they place the order with the warehouse, who then ships it. So we've got more cost, right? We've got the freight company, we've got the driver, we've got the stock boy in the store, stock girl in the store. So there's incredible costs associated with even the most mundane goods that you touch and deal with every day.
You're what it means in Walmart. Andrew just recently got hired at Walmart, and then he looked at me and said, "I'm working in you." I can't get it out of my head. I'm gonna need to see the therapist about this. I need the thing they have in
Now let's be real.
the movie where they flash it and forget it every memory. I need that to happen.
The production process for Kleenex, the production process for the box, the machinery in the factory, all of those capital costs haven't necessarily changed. The formula that they use to pulp the wood and produce the adhesive and the plastic haven't changed. So are those prices changing? Probably not. Pretty fixed capital costs. What could change to impact prices?
Price of labor.
Price of labor could change if you use a freighting company that is union-based and they negotiate a new contract. Transportation costs, so fuel costs. Natural resources, sooner or later we'll be out of trees.
The demand.
And consider the fact that for most of the paper goods that you have, the trees that were used to produce them were not necessarily grown here in USA. Let's say, for instance, that this box of Kleenex came from Brazilian rainforest trees. What recent changes could impact the cost? How about tariffs? Government intervention can affect costs as well. Or a waste disposal fee increase. If all of a sudden landfill costs go up, the cost to throw things away goes higher. That doesn't necessarily affect the cost of the good, but are there waste products produced in manufacturing? Yeah. If the government says you can only produce X tons of waste per so many units of production, it's going to increase the costs. Does that help a little to understand the myriad costs associated with the good? So just because the price on the shelf, P, price level, goes above the expected price, the firm may not have realized that all prices are rising yet. Because all of these grocery stores have cases and cases and cases of Kleenex sitting in their distribution warehouses already. Right?
So who's the one getting the loss on this one?
We're not talking about loss yet. I'm still trying to explain the base. I'm still trying to explain the base. Okay? So if you bought a case of Kleenex, let's say there's 10 boxes in a case, you bought the case for $10. And you have 100 cases sitting in your warehouse. You need to sell 1,000 boxes of Kleenex before you're going to realize any increased prices in Kleenex, correct? But can you raise the price on the shelf for the consumer immediately? Absolutely. Instead of $1.50, we're not going to charge $2 because the cost of Kleenex has gone up, even though you, having pre-bought Kleenex, are not going to realize those increased costs yet. Follow? And it's the consumer who pays.
Okay,
So,
with this one
but-
though, which price are we talking about? The price of, like, is this
If
the
the
saying like
Price
input?
level, well, we're not, so this is macro, so we're talking about all goods. I was just trying to take it down to a real micro level to explain the concept. Okay. So price level rises above the expected prices.
So you're saying that this isn't common because most businesses are not confused by this, right?
Correct.
Like they have a
What if-
pretty good understanding.
Wouldn't they want to do this? Because if people see that prices are going up, even though the Kleenex are pre-bought, wouldn't you want to raise the prices because now you're making more money?
Absolutely you would want to raise the prices. And don't misunderstand me, there are significant costs associated with having 100 cases of Kleenex sitting in a warehouse. That needs to be heated and cooled, it needs to be staffed, security needs to be provided, it's requiring electricity, blah, 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 blah. So what most manufacturers try to provide to retailers and distributors is on-demand, what's called drop shipping. So, Hannah's store needs more Kleenex. She contacts the warehouse says, uh-oh, I've just seen a spike in requests for cases of Kleenex to go out to the 17 stores that I service. I better contact Procter & Gamble and order some more Kleenex. They don't have 17 cases sitting in their warehouse. They have maybe 5 cases sitting in their warehouse. But their plan is, get those coming. And so it's the manufacturer who has them sitting in a pre-distribution warehouse or ramps up production. So it's much more sophisticated than that. I'm trying to give you a real dumbed down kind of version.
Will companies have people that work for them that specifically know, not know exactly when stuff is gonna increase, but have like a general idea? Like when Christmas rolls around, they obviously know people are gonna buy Christmas
Well,
wrapping paper.
Unless it's a brand new company, they're gonna have historical trends. They're gonna have trend data.
Or they can just look at
So they kind of
Yeah, they're gonna look at what they've done in the past. Also, major corporations are gonna employ economists. Yeah.
So they're.
If it's Fortune 500 company, there's probably a few economists on staff. They're gonna forecast, they're gonna work with marketers to forecast. They're gonna look at all kinds of things. You wanna bet that Procter & Gamble doesn't have a line to the CDC? Procter & Gamble manufactures all kinds of things. Antibacterial ointments and Band-Aids and Kleenex and Vicks Vapor Rub and all that kind of stuff. They're gonna have a contact Centers for Disease Control. Before you see on the news, oh, it's gonna be a heck of a flu season this year, Procter & Gamble is well aware of that and has pre-placed orders for more paper stock from the lumber mills, and the lumber mills have then placed orders on down the line. Yes.
My life's forever changed.
Andrew,
You
finally.
know that's what it stands
Things you think people fundamentally know and are shocked to find
for? I
out.
was thinking like Johnson.
Hey Andrew, what does
That's
BE
fine.
stand for? British Petroleum.
Okay,
I was like,
Nickelodeon. It doesn't stand for anything.
so now, here's another thing that can happen. Or here's the other way that it works. Because, and this is again what makes this implausible, because they see the price on the shelf rising, a firm thinks, uh-oh, costs are going up. And so, or I'm sorry, they don't think costs are going up. They're just like, woo, we're gonna make more money. So they don't realize that the cost of the case of Kleenex is going to get more expensive. They just raise the price on the shelf, and because they're making more money, then they hire more people and they produce more stuff, and then they find out, whoops, prices were actually going up, and they have to then cut back.
I thought my legs sometimes they
That's
stay
what makes it implausible, is because businesses are rarely so poorly self-informed. Okay? You are in bad shape if you're operating a business that reacts instead of forecasts and plans. An increase in price level can cause an increase in GDP, thus making the short-run aggregate supply curve upward sloping. So sticky wages, sticky prices, far more plausible reasons for why short-run aggregate supply slopes upward. Misperception theory exists. Serious grain of salt on that one though. Okay? So now you have three reasons why the short-run aggregate supply curve might be upward sloping. We already know firmly and concretely why the long-run aggregate supply is vertical and perfectly inelastic. Although these three theories are different, they do have some, yes sir.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Although these three theories are different, they do have some things in common. In all three theories, GDP is going to deviate from its normal levels when price deviates from the expected price. Or price, sorry, I keep saying price, it should be price level deviates from the expected price level. I threw a whole bunch of symbols at you, and guess what? There's a formula for that.
A, just a constant.
I'm going to explain. I lost the game.
I lost the game.
Y is output. sub n is the natural rate of output. The natural rate of output is going to be the long run. So it's going to be your LRAS. P is the actual price level. PE is the expected price level. A has to be greater than 0, and it is a measurement of how reactive Y is when changes in P are unexpected. A is an example of how reactive Y is when changes in P are unexpected.
Oh my god.
Y was hardly reactive at all, but there was a flinch. So
That's too
A
That's
was
too
still
easy. You gotta get me now.
A was still greater.
Come on.
A was still greater than 0.
I don't think I flinched because you scared me. I think it's just I wasn't expecting you to be that loud. I was like, my
Pushing
ears
extremely
hurt.
loud can only close. Okay, fine.
As regards these three theories, folks, the thing that's most important about all three of them is what they have in common, rather than what their differences are. And what they have in common is
Cat miss it.
that output changes when price differentiates from the when price levels differentiate from the expected price levels. Output varies when price level differentiates from the expected price level. And that can be higher or lower. A can never be less than 0, because there is no such thing as an anti-reaction. You have no reaction or you have a reaction. You can't unreact. So looking at it graphically,
Is this explaining the first one that they all have in common?
well, this is explaining, it's further explaining what they have in common. All three of them have in common that they examine the reaction of output to unexpected price changes. So there's our expected price level producing the natural rate of output. When price level is higher than the expected rate of output, or when price level is higher than the expected price level, we end up in this portion of the short run aggregate supply curve. You see just that portion above the pseudo-equilibrium point, resulting in an output that is greater than the natural rate of output. Do not call it the normal rate of output. That would be normative. You can't do that. Natural rate of output. Are you following how we're in this sector of the graph? Now, when price levels are less or lower than the expected price level, then output is less than the natural rate of output. And of course, here on our dotted line, when price level is exactly where we expected it to be, then output stays at its natural level. Yes? Now that you understand the words that I'm saying, you understand the result, correct? And It almost seems self-explanatory. All right. We're about to make the graph simultaneously more confusing and yet less confusing in the long run confusing scale.
Are we doing that today?
We are not going to start that today.
That's the game.
We